Class 12 Flamingo Lost Spring by Jung. About the author. Jung is an Indian female author, journalist and columnist who writes for major newspapers in India and abroad. She was born in Roorkela and belongs to an aristocratic family in Hyderabad. Her father was a renowned scholar and poet. Her mother and brother are also well-known Urdu poets. Theme. The theme of the chapter is the grinding poverty and the traditions which condemn poor children to a life of exploitation. The two stories taken together depict the plight of street children forced into labor early in life and denied the opportunity of schooling. Let's look at the summary of the story. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Sahib, the rag picker. Sahib is a rag picker who scrounges the garbage deposits to sustain his living. He and his family, refugees from Bangladesh, have come to the big city looking for gold. He is unable to study due to the lack of schools in his neighborhood. The narrator jokingly makes a false promise to open a school for him, but is later left embarrassed when he keeps approaching her, inquiring about the school. Sahib's full name, Sahib-e-Alam, meaning Lord of the Universe, is ironical because he, along with others like him, is outright downtrodden. The author wonders if staying barefoot is just a tradition among the poor or only an excuse to explain a way of perpetual state of poverty. The author recalls a story about a man from Udupi who, as a young son of a priest, used to pray for a pair of shoes. After 30 years, when the author visits the place, she finds that the situation has slightly improved because the son of the present priest now wears shoes and goes to school. However, the author pines at the thought of the still barefooted rag pickers of her neighborhood. Simapuri in Delhi is home to 10,000 rag pickers, mostly Bangladeshi refugees who came here in 1971. These people live in mud structures with roofs made of tin and tarpaulin. The ration carts which allow them to buy grains and the garbage are their means of survival. They believe that their transit shacks are a better place than their native villages that provide no food. Once in a while, the children manage to find coins and rupee notes in the garbage heaps. The author notices how such occasional findings help the children to cling on to hope and life. Sahib reveals his desire of playing tennis to the author. Even though he has managed to find a discarded pair of tennis shoes, the author knows the game itself is out of his reach. Contrary to his heartfelt desire, Sahib eventually ends up picking up a job in a tea stall where he is paid 800 rupees and all his meals. One morning, he meets the author on his way to a milk booth carrying a canister to fetch milk for his master, and the author observes how, in the process of earning a few hundred rupees, Sahib has lost his freedom and the carefree look. I want to drive a car, Mukesh and his family. Mukesh belongs to a family of bangle makers in Firozabad. Most of the families in the place are unaware of the illegality of their action in engaging children in such a hazardous industry. Even though children in such families take up the family profession, Mukesh wants to be a motor mechanic and drive a car. Mukesh takes the author to his house, which is one among many of the dilapidated houses of bangle makers constructed in stinking lanes. Mukesh's father has been unable to change the condition of the house and the family in spite of working very hard. The family now consisted of the father, the grandmother, the elder brother, his wife, and Mukesh. According to Mukesh's grandmother, once born into the caste of bangle makers, they have no way out but to surrender to their destiny. The grandmother recalls how her husband finally turned blind after working for years in the glass blowing industry. The lives of the people of Firozabad are centered on bangle making. All their lives they work with colorful bangles only to go blind in their later years. The author observes a young girl, Savita, and ponders over the life of women in that region. Before marriage, they make bangles, possibly without ever realizing its sanctity, and after marriage, wear them. The only boon some of these people have is a roof over their heads, but they are not able to manage a proper full time meal. Even after years of slogging, there has hardly been any change in the scenario of Firozabad. People seem to have stopped dreaming. The injustice of the social and legal system is the proverbial last straw for this already desolate section of people. The young men are bogged down by the police, the deceptive middlemen, and their own destinies, leaving them no choice but to give in to the imposed way of life. The prospect of Mukesh attempting to break this cycle seems to the author like a ray of hope, a small step by a start nevertheless.